Game Pass has been an incredible piece of business for Microsoft, and there's no denying the immense value it poses to the consumer. You know, seeing the subscription craze come into gaming in new ways has been interesting, and I mean, as far as what you get for your money, Game Pass is a great deal. I would even say it's something to consider passing over the PlayStation for if you're buying a gaming platform, but it's for that very reason that we're here in today's video, dear viewer, because another day has gone by where the Game Pass hasn't completely collapsed or caught fire or become contagious with an ancient disease, so they're starting to complain about it on Twitter again. Today's episode of Stupid Things Online started with this tweet from Doggy Style Clips. Who is Doggy Style Clips, you ask? Well, he likes to make silly, fun, and hopefully entertaining video clips from his PS5 gameplay. Share Factory Studio is such a beautiful video creation tool.
Well, I don't like the sound of that.
So Missionary says to all that subscribe to Game Pass, if you can't afford this hobby, and if you can't wait to buy games on sale, then go do something else. The gaming industry doesn't cater to broke, crying babies. If gaming is a luxury that you can't afford, then go do something else. Look, Game Pass is a great service, and if the companies involved are choosing to be involved, they probably see value in being involved, so I really don't see who's hurt by it existing. That is, unless you're a PlayStation fan and have this weird superiority complex, so whenever you see something that's not on PlayStation, you start breaking down. This post from Missionary kicked off one of the dumbest threads I've ever seen on Twitter that's basically just a textbook example of corporate bootlicking, because this literally all stemmed from someone going out of their way to talk shit about people who don't give enough money to major corporations, which, like, yeah, checks out for a Sony dick writer. So let's just get into the screenshots I've taken and start with our sharp exhaling from our noses out of minor comical amusement. When someone calls someone broke, weak, etc., it's usually projection. Projection is weak and pathetic. Trying to clown and gatekeep for people seeking value. Do better, be better. Freeloading isn't seeking value, freeloading is freeloading. Get a fucking job and buy some games.
And then they said, how did they phrase it? Then they said, give us some money!
How is it freeloading to patron a business? Like, Game Pass is a service that's available to spend money on, but if you spend money on it, you call them a freeloader. Do you know what freeload means? Quote, take advantage of other people's generosity without giving them anything in return. I'm pretty sure my money is something in return. It sounds to me like you've been told by Sony that you must pay $70 for all games at all times, and no, you can't have easier access to games because then we can't take as much of a cut from digital sales, and you've just refused to question that because Sony suggested it. Just because the service is there doesn't mean it's freeloading. It's kind of the opposite, actually. Because like, you're paying for it. I'm a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, and the highest tier of PSN. Buddy, I'd almost bet that I actually give away more games than you play. If how other people enjoy their games is such a problem for you, then you're the one with the problem. You were already muted, you're just another clout-chasing weirdo to me. You're claiming to be subscribed to all that extra shit, but yet you're here on Twitter crying about a Game Pass tweet. You're just another paid bot playing the role of a neutral on Twitter. But you're talking about it on Twitter too. So, like, shouldn't you also be playing games instead? Also, I'm loving this ratio. It's great. You're doing terrific. It's tweets like this that make me genuinely unsure if someone's a troll or not, and I certainly have my doubts about this one. I mean, aside from the fact that you're repeating the Xbox fans or paid bots thing from the single dumbest person to ever work at Blizzard, but if you're calling obviously real people bots and suggesting they're paid by your console opposition, I think it's safe to say who the actual clout chaser is here, because either you're actually a diehard Sony dick writer saying the dumbest things alive, or you're spending an awful lot of time pretending to be that, which isn't much better. Fact, my ass had to go play video games, which is capitalized for some reason, at friends' houses because we couldn't afford the new consoles. Learning priorities was one of the first lessons I learned as a kid. Yes, sir, I remember seeing Madden playing on a 3DO in a Sears store, but I just had to have it. It was expensive as fuck, but I saved up the money and bought it. Wait, so you're celebrating the fact that you didn't get to participate in a hobby you were interested in? I feel like you, of all people, should recognize the value of something like Game Pass then, right? The crux of this argument is basically just fuck you if you can't afford every game ever, and that's really not a winning argument. With how overexpensive gaming has gotten, why not add a budget option like Game Pass to the mix? Like, genuinely, who's hurt by that? And it's not like games aren't selling well this year. There have been plenty of great financial successes in 2023 in gaming, both on Game Pass and off. If a company doesn't want their game on Game Pass, they just won't put it on Game Pass, and if it's good, it'll sell well, as evidenced by Dead Space, RE4, Dead Island 2, Diablo 4, Street Fighter 6, Hogwarts Legacy, so on and so forth. And just because a game is on Game Pass or it launches on Game Pass, that doesn't mean it's an instant failure that never sells any copies, as evidenced by Amnesia the Bunker, Psychonauts 2, Atomic Heart, and all the games that launch on EA Access or EA Play, whichever one it's called, because EA Play is part of Game Pass on Game Pass PC. All of these games were financial successes despite launching with a Game Pass option, so like, what are you trying to say? This is the worst take I've ever read. Gaming is for everybody. Well, maybe not for you. Nobody would miss you. That's your entitlement speaking. Gaming is for people that can afford their hobby, just like everything else in life that costs money, period. Right, but Game Pass costs money, and you pay for it, so like, what's the problem? Other than the fact that Sony isn't getting money from it. Because let's be real, if Game Pass were on PlayStation, you wouldn't be saying a word about this. Which is why you specifically call out Game Pass here and not PS Plus or PS Plus Premium, whatever Sony's stupid PPPPP Game Pass counter is called. That's also a service that gives you access to a bunch of games for a monthly fee, but I don't see you complaining about that. So, like, why just Game Pass? Game Pass isn't even close to being the only subscription service in gaming right now. Could it possibly be because your problem isn't actually with the concept of Game Pass, but rather just the fact that Sony's name isn't attached to it? 'Cause I think it is. Haha, tell me you're sad that Xbox is throwing new titles and new exclusives on Game Pass while PS is not. All over again. Console warring is dumb, bro. Let people have fun without hating them for having fun. Redfall. Enough said. Because Sony's lack of Game Pass means all of their exclusive games are of good quality. Like Forspoken, and Last of Us 2, and Gran Turismo 7, and Predator Hunting Grounds, and the new Vampire the Masquerade thing, and Destruction All-Stars. I mean, can you imagine if those games were made while Game Pass existed? Fuck, they would have been mediocre. Wait, my boy doesn't know how to live in a third world country. Here a game is half a minimum salary. I don't give a fuck about your third world problems. Gaming should be the least of your concerns right now. Yes. Fuck you for being poor. Got it. Thanks for clearing that up. Look, Game Pass is making bank. Like, a stupid amount of bank. Like, somewhere between 25 and 30 million subscribers amount of bank. If you're upset that Sony isn't giving you something like this, that's an issue to take up with Sony. But attacking people for buying a service that was offered to them because it somehow makes them cheap or freeloaders, it's just fucking sad, bro. Gaming is actually in a really solid place right now, and part of that is due to the competition between all the major players involved. And you know what part of that competition is? The appeal of your platform. And you know what part of the appeal of the Xbox or PC is? A nice subscription service that lets you play a bunch of games. If you don't want Sony to actually have to compete and make their platform better in response to this, maybe that's because you're obsessed with logos and don't actually play games. Toodles.